Cool. Yay. Hi, everyone. I'm Bayana Davis, co-founder and CEO of Black Girls Create. Welcome to our special Black Wizard History Month interview with sci-fi fantasy author Alechia Dow. Hi, Alechia. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yay. Me too. I'm very excited that this got to work. We put this all together. Yeah, so I guess we'll just kind of jump right in. So first question, how did you get into writing and then why science fiction?
That is a great question. I started writing when I was a tiny person, like I was 5, 6. Terrible stories, like the worst stories ever. And I got in trouble a lot at school for spending too much time writing stories instead of doing homework, of course. And then I loved writing, but I didn't know if I had I had the talent, I had that spark for it, and I didn't know if I could ever finish a book. I really didn't know if I could do it. So I went to pastry school and I became a food writer there. And I have a concentration in career writing and food writing. And then I went to library school, and that's when I started to get really into writing more and more. And then I was a librarian, and I took a class on how to create your own superhero. And I thought that was super fun. And I came up with a character, and I wrote my first book based on her. And that was also a terrible book, but it got me into a writing in the margins mentorship with Justine Ireland, and my mentor was Tamara Matea, and basically she helped me learn to write. We revised that entire book, and then I wrote a second book, and then I wrote my third book, which was The Sound of Stars, and then it just kind of fell into place. I had a lot of rejections for the first 2 books I wrote. It was the third book where I pitched it to Pitch Wars, didn't get in. And then like a week later, I was like, well, there's PitMat. I guess I can try it in one of those pitch contests. And I did. And I think it was like a Thursday. And then by Monday, I had my first offer of representation.
Oh, wow.
Thought, wow, this is so cool. I wasn't expecting that at all. And it's been a bit of a bumpy road, but I'm here now and I've made it. And, I found my rep, I found all the things, and I've found my voice within this industry and in storytelling. So it's been really fun, but whew, it was dramatic.
Yeah, it sounds like so many different paths and ups and downs, and it's so interesting too that it can take a long time and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, I have this offer. Oh my gosh, it just, yeah.
I was completely surprised. I have no idea how we're perceived when we're writers, when you just putting yourself out there and you're just like, I have to take a step back because I don't want to get too attached to the idea of me doing well, because then that'll create a whole bunch of expectations that I can't live up to. But then when something good happens, you're just, I'm so excited. And I still have to balance myself out a lot in this industry where I'm like, okay, be excited, but don't be too excited. Be happy, but rein that in, because things just happen in publishing that you cannot control. And you just have to take the small joys wherever you can.
Right, of course. Yeah. Did you always know that you wanted to write? Because I know you said you did food writing initially. So did you always know you wanted to write sci-fi, or was that just once you started writing your own books, did it just end up kind of fall into that, or how did that work?
For some reason, when I started writing, and it always went into sci-fi because that was the first genre I really loved. I was a kid at the library. I spent most of my childhood in the library. I got my first job at the library. I did everything at the library. And the area I felt really drawn to were comics. And so I was into comic books and R.L. Stine and weird things that were just there. And I would grab them and I would read them. And sci-fi was just that place where I felt the most at home, because it explores things in a really nice way. And I don't have to be confronted with reality. And I don't always like to be confronted with reality. So it was like, when you're Black and you see Black kids in comics, they're doing stuff. They're not, it's a totally different world. They're not going to have all the same issues that you have. And that was really refreshing to me. So refreshing. So when I started into writing and I got into it, I went right to sci-fi. I was like, there was no other choice for me. I had to do that.
Nice. So kind of going off of that, what is your favorite thing about writing sci-fi? Like which part of it?
I think it is the exploring big ideas in
Mm.
small ways. It
Mhm.
sounds weird because sci-fi can be huge, and I write books where there are different planets, there are all kinds of stuff. But I think I want to be a character-driven type of author where I really am about characters and exploring all of these things going on in their lives and
Mhm.
how they engage with the world they're in. And I love to explore that, and I love to draw the parallels to our world and how we might shape them and how we might, I don't know, solve some of the problems we have. I don't always solve them, but I like the idea that we could think about it in a different way.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of, your most recent book, The Kindred, just came out in January. Can you just let us know like what it's about? Just like a quick little synopsis.
Of course. The Kindred is a story about a mind-linked duke and a commoner who, after the royal family was assassinated, the duke is framed for the murders. So he grabs his mind-linked pair, which is the commoner Joy, and they crash land on Earth. And while on Earth, they have to figure out how to save their home, how to save their kingdom, and what exactly they mean to one another. And it is a love story. It is sci-fi fantasy, and it's on Earth. It's in space. It's really fun.
Yeah, I will concur. I liked it a lot.
Thank you very much.
Yes. So what was your inspiration for The Kindred?
The Kindred is definitely a story that I was when I before I started writing. I had watched this documentary on loneliness and
Mhm.
how people are more lonely now than they were before, and how technology can be used to kind of help with loneliness. Like you can have an app where you can meet up with somebody and get a hug, or you can, like just meet up with people at a cafe or something and just talk to them, and it helps with loneliness, and how technology can be used in that. And then I thought how interesting it would be if you could use technology to do loneliness and like to help loneliness in a totally different way. If you could link two people, like they would never be lonely, they would always be connected, they would always be able to have somebody on the other side of the world
Mhm.
who would be listening to them, who would not judge them, who would kind of be shaped by who you are and you'd be shaped by who they are. And I loved this idea because it could be, I like to look at the positive of it. There is
Yeah.
definitely a way that this could be a totally negative thing. But if you're looking at it in that way, I think it could be really beautiful and you can explore so many different things within that.
Yeah. That's such an interesting way to frame it and like to think about it too, because like, age of like the internet and everything, like most of my like closest friends are all across the country. Um, and so it is that thing where then it's like, especially now with like, everything that's going on, it's like you can't really, it's harder to kind of like meet up and to like hang out and to do all those things. And those things kind of happen just like in this.
It's nice to stay connected even when you're far apart. And
Yeah.
every time I get asked this question, I realize that it was me being all the way over here in Germany and being super disconnected from everyone else that I've grown up with, that my family, everything. And I think that like shaped me a lot.
Mm,
And I went right into that with the Kindred. And it was so much fun to write. I definitely had a lot going on in my brain when I was writing. I really loved looking at it that way. But it wasn't until after I had finished it and put it out and I was talking about it that I realized how much I had put in my own circumstances, my own
mm,
identities, all these different things were in that book. And I hadn't really thought about it. I was just so focused on getting it done that I hadn't realized just what an extensive amount of work went into that. It was like
right.
I had no idea. I'm very happy and I'm very proud of it. I had no idea when I was doing it. I have no idea. I was just like, oh, I'm just writing a book. It's never just writing a book. You're always
Yeah.
doing stuff. I don't know how I didn't know that.
I kind of love that though. Like it's just, you're in it and you're just doing the thing, and then later you're like, wow, that just revealed a whole lot about me that I didn't realize I was about to delve
Really
into.
weird. And you're sharing this with all these people, and you're like,
Right.
wow, super personal. Well done. Hopefully nobody thinks about that later.
Right. So your debut novel, The Sound of Stars, is set in the same universe as the Kindred. But while the stories aren't directly connected, many of the themes overlap. So what are the kinds of stories that you want to tell? And just kind of like, yeah, what are the kinds of stories that you want to tell?
I love telling stories that they seem huge, but they're really small. I love to talk about people. I love to look at humanity. I love looking at morality and why people do the things they do, or why they feel they have to do the things they do. I've always wanted to tell stories that are thoughtful, and especially within sci-fi. But then at the same time, I really love writing stories that are very joyful, very positive, and upbeat and hopeful. So it's just like whatever I enjoy writing at the time,
Yeah.
what I want to tell at the time. I love writing. I just got into really writing about food, and I was a published food writer, so I know how to write about food. But did I know how to write about food in fiction? That was the test. And thankfully, I have a middle grade coming out next year that is a foodie fantasy. So I was able to do it. I was excited, and I love being able to do that. And I would love to do more of what I've done, but also I'd love to explore mental illness. I'd love to do more characters that feel very true to me, that might feel really true to readers, that typically are underrepresented. And for some reason, publishing has been like, nah. I don't wanna do that. So I would love to do that. In all of my stories, I always feature and I know this seems weird, but I always feature a fat Black girl at the beginning. That's it. That's going to be everybody else is, a variable, but I will always have a fat Black girl at the center of the story because that is what I want to read. When I was, it didn't exist really. There was definitely not a lot of it. I think most of the books I read with fat characters in it were either white or they were the villains. It was like, and they hated themselves. There was also that whole area where they just hated themselves. And it's like 200, 300 pages of them just, I don't like myself. And then you're reading it as a fat person and you're like, well, damn, do I hate myself? Am I supposed to? Is that the takeaway from this? So I have enjoyed writing characters that look and experience the world like me, but experience it maybe in a different way. That's really my number one goal, is to always kind of give younger Alechia the story she needed desperately, but at the same time writing for and about teens today and what I think they might enjoy and what I think would honor them and what they're doing in their lives now.
Tight. Sort of like a mini question. Do you plan to write more like in this universe? I mean, I also know like if you don't now, that could always mean
right now I am writing something in this universe, but we will see if I can like talk about it soon.
Cool.
It all depends. I'm having a great time, and I would love to go back into that universe and kind of, if I can, conclude it. If I make a conclusion, even though it's not a trilogy, it's just a series of books that are interconnected.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. I love I love series. It's very hard for me to like. I mean, I like standalones, but a lot of times I'm like, where's the rest? So that's good to know.
I love them as well. I love series and I love trilogies and I love duologies so much. So when I wrote The Sound of Stars, they were like, well, it's going to be a standalone because, we don't know how it's going to do. Sci-fi is hard. YA is
Mhm.
not to mention you're writing a black fat character who is, on the page, all of these things, and suffers from anxiety in this. And
Mhm.
I made sure that I was being very careful with that. Um, so it wasn't sure they were going to let me write anymore. I
Right.
wasn't certain. And then they were like, yeah, you can write the Kindred. All right. Run home real fast. And then I wrote the Kindred, and I was like, but I'm going to make them in the same universe. Because if you're writing YA sci-fi and you have this one book, I'm not going to start over and create a whole
Whole
new
new work.
universe
Oh my gosh, yeah.
when
'Cause it's
I'm
just
in
so many you've already done so much work, like, to have to start over is just
so much. And it's not because I didn't want to, it's because it wouldn't make sense. That would be a lot of unnecessary work when I already had this story within this universe. And there's so much going on in that universe already. And it's
Mhm.
like, well, let's add another story in. And I love that. And I'm really glad Inkyard let me do that because they didn't know they were getting that when when they bought it. So,
Right.
and then afterwards I was like, so about this. And they're like, oh, okay, that's fine. And then afterwards it's like, well, what are they going to let me get away with next? Let's see.
Right.
And it's basically been me just, hey, Inkyard, be cool with this. And mostly they've been yes, they've been yesing me. So
Oh.
I'm really happy. I'm very surprised. I am going to run with it as long as I can.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's really exciting. Um, so many sci-fi stories, particularly those written by white authors, ignore everyday and real world oppression people face in favor of allegories for that oppression, while also erasing those who were actually affected by it in real life. Your books do the opposite, confronting our society's systemic problems, even when dealing with more like intergalactic issues. How did you go about incorporating and balancing those topics with like this larger plot and with like aliens and all these other different elements?
Well, it kind of seems easy because I'm writing sci-fi that's grounded on Earth, and I think
Mhm.
if you're writing sci-fi that is potentially grounded on Earth, you have to apply Earth rules and Earth settings to it and what's going on there. Now, I mean, I know there's a way that other writers can just not do that, but I don't think it's possible, and I don't know if it's I don't I feel like it would be a disservice for me to not write in anything that's going on. I have
Mhm.
to do that. I mean, if I'm writing about characters that are black, that are fat, that have mental illness, that are going through all these things that, there was Trump in office when when I wrote The Sound of Stars.
Right.
You know, how am I going to write about that and then be like, "No, I'll just no reality there." It just doesn't make sense. And if I'm starting on Earth, then I have to apply all of the world building that Earth has, for
Mhm.
better or for worse. And it also helps to know that, I mean, even at the end of the world, there will still be racism. There will still be all like,
Yeah.
it's a nice thought to think we're humans are all in this together because we're all against, aliens. But it's
That's
just
not realistic.
like I don't see that happening. I mean, you can watch what is it, Walking Dead, and be like, "Oh wow, humans are the real zombies. They're the
Mhm.
real terribleness." But you can see that humans still have these old hatreds. They still have all these biases. They have all of these things, and it doesn't just go away because there's a new threat. So I wanted to kind of confront that. And I also really loved the idea with The Sound of Stars, especially that you can have all these terrible experiences, and then you're now given this opportunity to change everything, to save everyone. And I think if you're a white author, you would be like, yes, I will do that because
Yeah.
I am the chosen one. And I think if you're writing a black character, it'd be like, why though?
Right.
Why should I save everyone? And how am I gonna change it? Because I can do all of these things, but that doesn't mean they're gonna take. That doesn't mean it's gonna actually change. And I think it's realistic, and also it shows you what it's like for anyone who's not white in our country, in the US, but all over the world as well, where it's just we're trying, we're doing our best, but I mean, it has to happen all over. It can't just be us. There has to be allies. There has to be people who want change. So I loved doing that, and I thought it was really powerful for the main character to be like, okay, maybe I can, but then what is that going to look like?
Right.
I don't want a character who's just like, I'm the chosen one, I'm going to figure it all out and everything's going to be great, because that's not how it works. It's just not how it works. And Ellie has that growth to happen. And with Joy, it's a totally different story because she is very positive. She's very upbeat. She really wants to believe in the best, but she also just accepts her fate over and over and over again. Where she's like, yeah, I'm not happy about it, but what are you going to do?
Right.
Nothing. And then when she's given the opportunity to change her life for the better, she's still not sure it's the better for everyone else. There's this very annoying selflessness in her where she's, like, and I know I can say that because I wrote it, but she's like, I can make my life better. I can be really happy. But is that going to make my community happy? Is that going to be good for my world? Is that going to be good for my mom? And that's who she is. And I love writing these characters because there's a real character in there. There are things we can relate to in there. It's a lot of people can relate to that. And I hope that it does, and I hope it resonates with readers.
Nice. So you kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but who are the people that you want your stories to reach? Like, who, like, obviously, anyone can read these books, but like, who are the people that when you're writing, you're like, this is who I want to like read these books?
I am very, very happy that I can write in the YA space because it's a huge honor to write for young adults and about young adults. They're doing things that seem impossible, and they're doing them every day. And they are standing up for what they believe in. They're walking out of school because of coronavirus. They know what's up, and they are, sometimes they're very fearless. They're very driven. They're very outspoken, and that is amazing. And when you get to write for teens, that's in my mind of like, I hope this makes them happy. I hope they can see themselves in this. So that is, overall, that's who I'm writing for, and I hope they pick that up. But there's a huge part of me that is hoping that Black teens will go in and pick this up and be like, hey, I can see myself in this. And, I can have a romance where someone like me could be the main love interest. I could be in space. I could be in a spaceship. I can do all of these things. Again, when I was a teenager, that didn't really exist. There were caveats, and there usually wasn't a happy ending. So I would love it if Black teens get to read this and feel like, hey, we can do anything. We can do anything. We can have all these stories, and they can be about us.
Yeah, love that. So there were shout outs to both authors and musicians in both of your books. Who are some creators who inspire you?
Oh man, there's a whole list. I do a shout out in every book because they let me. Like, nobody has cut me off yet, so it's like I'm just gonna see how much I can slide in. There's some Bethany C. Morrow is one of those people who, whenever I read her books, I'm just like in awe of her. She's extremely confident. She's extremely competent, and she writes things in such an interesting way, and she's so talented. It's just, and I love her books. A Chorus Rises and A Song Below Water and So Many Beginnings. The first one I read was Mem, which is adult sci-fi, and it's like speculative, I would say, but it's so clever. It's just one of those things you read and you're like, what am I doing? That's what she makes me do. I am such a huge fan of hers, and I every once in a while I try to like DM her and be like, hey. And she's really cool, and she's always very helpful to me. I love Jordan Ifueko's Redemptor and Raybear. Switch places with that. Incredible I'm a huge fan. Beth Revis is I'm also a huge fan of hers. Rebecca Coffindaffer writes YA sci-fi and does it seamlessly. And I read their work and I was just blown away. Like, how do you do that? Mine, like I read theirs and it was just like a space adventure that was fun and it never let go. When you read my stuff, I always get into the deep nitty gritty stuff, and I have to be like when I'm writing, I have to be like, okay, now remove yourself from this.
Right.
You're out of there. Um, Rebecca Coffindaffer never has that issue. You are reading and you are having a blast, and I love that. Um, let's see who else. There's like I think JL is fantastic. Um, Elise Bryant writes so beautifully and fun, and I think it really resonates with people. I'm gonna think about this question later, and I'm gonna be like, why didn't I say that? I'm gonna be so mad. And then like my books are right over there, so it's like,
Right. You're like,
oh,
who else?
there's so many. Um, Kaylin Barron also is amazing. Leah Johnson, Claire Kahn. Yeah, the list goes on and on. I mean,
Yeah.
I also am a librarian, so that I used to be a librarian in the U.S. So I read whenever I could. For adult, though, I have to say Denise Williams is someone I really, really appreciate, and Jasmine Guillory.
Yeah.
And I'm into it all. If I can read it and it's there, and I'm trying to get these books. I have not received my copy of Iron Widow yet.
Oh, really? Oh
Um, and it's just really hard to get some books out here.
no.
But I have a feeling when I read that, I'm going to be like super impressed by this.
Yeah.
It's on my list. I'm like, come on. I love books. I love them all. And there's no person I've met that I thought, I'm better than them. That's not how this industry works. Not for me anyway, where I read everybody and I'm just like impressed from everyone's work, but also I read it and I think, oh wow, look what they did there. And it kind of inspires me to do something different with how I approach it. I think a lot of people can read craft books and shape their voices, and shape the way they're writing stories. I read books and I realize what it is that I'm doing and how I might do better. I think there's a real learning potential with reading, and I do it as much as I can.
Yeah. I love that. I've found like because of the pandemic, I've been able to read more. Like after like graduating college, it was just like, oh, it's not fun anymore because of like all the books I had to read in school. And then like more recently I got to like come back to that. And like I've definitely felt similarly, just like, oh, this is like it's fun and like you can kind of delve into like, oh, this is like what they're doing here, and that's really interesting. And then also like being in awe of like what's going on. Like there's just so many different like things that you can kind of take from and appreciate and all that stuff. So it's awesome.
Yeah, it's an honor to read to a lot of these books, and sometimes they give them to me early, and I'm like, yes, I feel like I'm on the come up, like I'm finally where I need to be. That I'm getting free books, or I'm getting books like a few months earlier, and because otherwise I might get them many months late. So I'm really, really happy that I'm finally getting books. Like, if anybody's ever watching this and wants to send me their book, all right, I'll take it.
You've twisted my arm. I guess I'll have to get more book mail.
I'm really happy that people send me books. I'm super happy. Farida Abike Ayamendi. I think I said that right. And Adiba Jagadir as well. I just realized are two people that I'm just like in awe of. Yeah, that's like all right. We gotta
keep going. Yes. Okay. So you talked earlier just kind of like about your journey into becoming a published author. What's some advice you have for like any like creator who's like starting out or is just kind of like trying to break into whatever their industry is?
I think the number one thing is if you are an aspiring writer, you're a writer, you're an author. Read as much as you can when you can. Learn from those. That's the same thing, but it's true. Um, do not compare yourself to somebody who's already in the industry and doing well. Like, don't say, I want to be the next Angie Thomas. No one's going to be the next Angie Thomas. Angie Thomas is Angie Thomas. You are you, and you are going to be the next you. Like, you're always going to be that person. That's that. Find your people. That one's a big one. You have to find people you trust with your work, that you can trust to talk to, that you can trust to help push you further. I think when people are starting off, they're really excited about meeting people and they want to share their work with everyone. But there's a difference with people you work with. You're going to find people who are going to try to tear you down, not meaning to, because it makes them feel better. And then you're going to find people who build you up because that makes them feel better.
Yeah.
And also, you're on the same, wavelength. So definitely be careful, but find your support system, find your people. Make sure you have a critique partner, one or two. Make sure you have people who want to read your work, and who are okay with your insecurities, because that's huge. And who you can just like share all of your big publishing dreams with. You got to find those people, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. Keep writing when it gets hard, when you get rejections. And these are things I think you will hopefully learn and you'll know. But it's hard because I get rejections now and I'm like,
Right.
I'm never gonna write again. Every time. And I would love to say that I don't do that I have a really good, head on my shoulders and I feel really confident about myself. But I don't think it's possible. I think every time I get any kind of good news, I am so excited because I get at least 10 pieces of bad news for every good piece.
Right.
So you have to find the little joys and celebrate them while you can.
Yeah.
Just try to be happy even when it's hard.
Yeah. Love that. Cool. Okay. So, as much as you can tell us, can you let us know what's coming next?
Okay, so I have my my first short story is with Inkyard, and it is coming out in June 2023, and it is no, not 2023. This year, it's coming out this year.
Okay, awesome. It's still so early. It's I don't know.
I don't even know this year right now. I'm really lucky that I know it's January. I know that.
Yeah.
Because the book came out this month. That otherwise, if it didn't, I would be like, what? What is time?
Exactly.
Okay, so June this year, out there into the queer new yonder, I did a sci-fi take on Sleeping Beauty, and it's called Beauty Sleep. So check that out. Then I have a middle grade foodie fantasy called Just a Pinch of Magic, which comes out in fall 2023 from 501 Friends. And it is really, really fun and has recipes. I also have, I want to say in August 2023, I have my second short story, which is about a star who falls to Earth and is reborn as a Black teenager. And it is beautiful, and it is a look at mental illness and sci-fi, and it's, I think, probably one of the most interesting things I've ever written. There's another thing coming out in 2023 that I cannot talk about, and I think that's all. I think that's all the things I can talk about. But when they're announced, I will be very happy to talk about them.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting on it. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, come on, hurry up.
I'm doing an email come on, tell me I can.
Come on, I'm asking all the time, can I talk about this yet? No.
Awesome. So then, for folks to be ready for that announcement, we do have buy links for The Sound of Stars and the Kindred in our description. But in general, where can folks find you?
You can find me at ALECHIADow.com, which is ALECHIADOW.com. And then I'm on Twitter as Alechia Writes, ALECHIA'Writes. How did I forget what Writes is? Well, uh, oh, Alechia. I'm on Instagram as well at Alechia Dow. I hope you'll know how to spell it by now because I'll probably mess it up. I think that's, and I'm on TikTok too, but don't, I'm not doing that much. I'm not good at TikTok right now. I'm feeling my age when I do TikTok.
I'm very intimidated. Like as soon as I heard about it, I was like, that's great for whoever's doing that, but it's like I can't.
You gotta be good at that stuff. You have to know how to make a video. I can't even do that. I can't do that. I can make one shot video, and that's what I've got going for me. Like if there's anything I need to do, it's not happening.
I had like in middle school we had like a video editing class, so I'm like, what I have is whatever I vaguely remember from back when I was in like 8th grade. Like this isn't gonna work.
I'm way older. We didn't know that. We didn't do that stuff.
Right.
I did graphic design when I was in like high school, and I didn't do that well either. And now I have to do Canva and graphic design.
Oh yeah.
Like, it's good that I have the skills now, but man, I did not know I was going to need these skills.
Right, exactly.
I had no idea. I'm learning as I go. But you can find me on social media. I'm usually there. I'm in Germany. There's not much going on over here. I live in a small village, so I am on the computer doing stuff. And you can always, find me over there and talk to me there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you for having me. This was really fun.
Yeah, so much fun. And thanks to everyone for watching and for joining us this February for Black Wizard History Month. We're so grateful to Alechia for talking to us, and we hope this interview has inspired you to finally pull out that project you've been thinking about or pushed you to finish what you're already working on. Black Girls Create is a hub for Black creators and critical fandom. If you want to stay up to date with upcoming programming and content or want to join our Discord community of fans and creators, you can do all of that at blackgirlscreate.org. Follow us on Twitter at BLKGirlsCreate and on Instagram at BlackGirlsCreate. If you want to financially support us in putting on more programs like this and helping more fans to create, go to blackgirlscreate.org/support. Thanks, y'all.
Okay, thank you.